All right, everyone. This is Real Sales Talk, and this is Season 3, Episode 8. We're almost done with Season 3. Can you believe it? It's gone by so fast. Tonight, we have an incredible guest on the show, Tom Hopkins. He's been a sales hero of mine for at least several years, and some of his books have made a massive impact on my career. He is one of the sales legends. I think that he's actually defined sales hustle. I think Tom Hopkins is the actual definition of sales hustle. He's impacted millions of people around the world, and he's also written 18 books and almost 3 million copies of those books. We'll talk about a few of those here in just a moment, but I want to give Tom a huge warm welcome. So thank you for being on Real Sales Talk this evening, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, Sean. Good to be with you and your listeners, and we're going to have some fun.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So just to give you a little bit of insight, Tom, into our audience, mostly newer sales reps, mostly newer people in sales, as well as entrepreneurs who are starting new companies and new businesses. And so this is probably the first time many of our Sales Talk audience are hearing your name and what you're all about. Would you mind just giving a quick little introduction to how you got into sales and what you're doing right now?
Well, I got into sales. I didn't really plan it, but I was a construction worker and decided I wanted to do something else with my life. And so I decided to go into real estate and got my license at age 19 and started selling homes and found my niche. And I hope that people listening realize that one of the keys to success and happiness is to find what we call your niche in life. And I call the niche something you love to do, not for the money, but because you love what you do. And that's what I did in real estate. And I did that for 8 years. And my fourth year, I happened to hit everything perfectly and sold 365 homes in a year, which was an average of one a day.
That's a lot. Wow.
Which had never been done. And so that's when the National Association of Realtors said, this kid's only 23 years of age. We have to ask him to speak. And so they invited me out and I started doing speeches on selling. And then I wrote my first book, How to Master the Art of Selling. And then all of a sudden, when you're an author and your book hits the New York best-selling list, the doors open for you to go out. And so I've lived, the last 40 years, every week almost flying somewhere in the world of free enterprise and capitalism, teaching people the art of selling. So that's kind of been my life. And, that's what I do today. So it's been a great thing because selling is so important to our country of free enterprise and capitalism. So it's a great way to live.
I'm actually curious to know, Tom, when you wrote your first book, How to Master the Art of Selling, how old were you? Because you experienced that real estate success at age 23. At what point did you write that book?
At 24 and 25. I took 2 years, almost 3 years, and I think I was 27 or 8 when it came out, and it went as a New York bestseller, and that kind of opened the door. And I always tell people, they go, "Gee, I want to do seminars, I want to speak." I go, "Great, everybody wants to write a book," and they go, "I'm going to write a book, but no one ever does." So my 19th or 18th book just came out, When Buyers Say No. And so, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort, but it's so gratifying to put into print the thoughts, the ideas, the concepts, strategies that can help people have a better life. And when you do that for your living, it has got to be one of the most wonderful ways to live.
I think that's really incredible, and I'm really intrigued by this idea of you having written a book at age 24 and 25. I mean, I've read the book several times over. I mean, if you look at the book here, it's dog-eared like crazy, and
I love it.
Yeah, the thoughts are just so well communicated. So I'm just blown away and actually really inspired, because I as well have considered writing a book and tossed through multiple topics and what would bring value to the people who follow me. So incredibly inspiring. Now, for those that are actually watching this live, Tom is just on audio for now, so that's why you don't see his face. And if you're asking questions to Tom, if you've got a sales question for Tom, which I would highly recommend, you can go to Twitter and you can use the hashtag #RealSalesTalk. I'll be monitoring that as we continue our conversation with Tom. And the topic for today is the definitive guide to closing the sale. And I can't think of any better person to ask how to close the sale and what are the best techniques to do that than you, Tom. So my first question for you is, where, in your opinion, does closing the sale truly start?
Well, that's a real misconception for many people that look at selling. They kind of have a feeling it's at the end when you do something, suddenly, boom, and close it. And I believe it all begins from the moment you make contact. The moment they see you visually, how they feel about the way you look, the way you're dressed, the way you come across. Then, of course, what they hear verbally is all part of it. And I totally believe it's a growing process from the moment they meet you, see you, hear you, till suddenly it's then time to make a decision on making the investment in whatever the product or service is. So I believe it's a flowing process, and it begins the moment they see and hear you.
I know that as society, we learn not to be judgmental about the way people visually look, but unpack that a little bit more. In because we have a younger sales audience, they may not have grasped that the value of making sure that you're professionally represented. So why does that matter? Why do you think that's important to come into a sales call well-groomed and well put together?
Well, it all depends on what your product is. Now, if I were involved in selling large investments to people that were investing hundreds of thousands of dollars, they would want me to dress the way their banker dresses, who they take confidence in. So I would definitely have a suit and tie on. Now, if I were selling other products, I might just have a shirt and maybe a tie with no coat. There's many products that I would not even wear. Like if I were going out and selling home improvement products, I'd wear probably a golf shirt with the name of my company on it. So the dress depends on who you're going to be with, where you're going.
Yep. And so, I mean,
I would wear a casual outfit. So your dress and the way you look depends on where you're going and who you're going to be with.
I think that's great, and I think it does kind of bring it down to more of a neutral perspective. I mean, let's say you've got someone who's selling surfboards and going to various businesses that have surfboard shops. You might not need to wear a suit and tie or even a collared shirt, right? For that matter, you'd want to reflect the type of person that you're looking to sell to. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, see, everything has to be appropriate. If I were selling surfboards, I would look at the way the surfers dress. However, I would find out what the most expensive surf gear would be and wear a good outfit instead of just the cheapest thing you could get off the rack at a store. Because there again, even if you're at that level of marketing surfboards, they still judge you subconsciously based on what you're wearing, how you're coming across.
Mm-hmm.
And what the subject is, what the price of the product is, and what are you marketing? Home improvement people shouldn't walk in with a suit and tie. It's too overbearing. You should maybe wear Yes, you could wear a nice shirt with the company name on it, but it should be clean. You should smell good, look good, and of course, be dressed appropriately as far as what the product is.
It's almost like, and I've been in these shoes before, and I'm a firm believer in making sure that you're at the top of your game visually, and you're reflecting and matching that audience that you're talking to. In your opinion, do you think that making sure that you're fitting the part, does that open up the other person to listening and respecting you more when you can do that?
Well, it doesn't open them up as much as it doesn't let them close you down. In other words, they will look at you verbally, visually, and subconsciously. Do I like him? Do I trust him? Is he someone I want to do business with? And again, that all starts with how you come across in the beginning.
So let's take that a step further. You get into a face-to-face sales call, and when we're talking about the idea of where closing the sale starts, what are some of those first things that come out of your mouth when you meet with that person, prospective client, on that sales call? What are some of those first things that someone should be saying in order to set up that quote unquote closing of the sale at the beginning of the conversation?
Well, I have always believed in starting with thanking them for the time. Kind of like if I were meeting you in this appointment, I'd say, Sean, let me thank you in the beginning for the time you're sharing, looking at what we do. We've been fortunate to serve many happy clients, and I'm looking forward to seeing if what we have to offer makes sense to you. Now, see, the thanking and almost coming across like, if what I'm offering doesn't make sense, then that's fine too, which is what I call a pressure reliever. See, many people in sales don't give them almost a feeling like it may not be for you. And if you say no, that's fine. But I've always relaxed people with that attitude. And when I was in real estate, the first thing I'd say to them is say, now, what we're doing is very important to find you the right home. We shouldn't be in any hurry. And our company does not believe in high pressure. So we want to just make sure we do the right thing for you and your family, which all these little sayings are designed to relieve that normal pressure of a selling situation.
I like that because you never know what someone's preconceived idea about a salesperson is. Maybe they've had a bad experience with a salesperson in the past, and maybe they're not showing it physically, but they're reserved. They're approaching that conversation cautiously. So having that sort of statement in the very beginning, I think, does set that person at ease and gives them the option to think in their mind, oh, okay, if this is not a good fit, then the salesperson on the other end is okay with that. In fact, and let me know what your thoughts are about this, I think that qualifying someone in or out as soon or as early in that conversation as possible is actually better for the salesperson, as well as for that prospective client. Would you agree with that, or what's your thought on that?
No, I totally agree. I think saying something like, let's consider our time somewhat exploratory, meaning let me show you what we can do. And please realize our company doesn't believe in high pressure. And so please be free to be open-minded. I love the words be open-minded. But if in any way it's not for you, let me know. Because the last thing we want to do is have any degree of pressure on our people. But hopefully, if it's not right for you, you may know someone that you can refer me to. And that'd be wonderful as well.
I love that. I love that. So the next question is around questions, actually. So how important are asking questions in that sales process as you continue that initial meeting and into various additional conversations with that prospective client as well? are questions important, and how can you do a really good job at talking about this in the book that I've read, How to Master the Art of Selling. So unpack that a little bit more and talk about the importance of question asking.
Well, I would say this. Years ago, I realized that the challenge that most people have is they're talking and telling instead of asking and listening. And there's a bunch of truths here, Sean. First of all, in any conversation, whoever is talking is only learning what they already know. Whoever is listening after asking the right questions is getting the information they need to know. So I think that probably 80% of all of my teaching is wrapped around questioning and listening, not talking and telling. And I mean, I can just tell you the importance. If I ask enough of the right questions, I'll find out exactly what you will say yes to when I go into the final closing of the sale. And it really begins by, letting them know that as I get into my presentation, I'd like you to please, if questions arise, let me know. And we find that we can serve our clients best when they ask us the questions they need to ask. And it's almost like opening up the door for them to ask questions. And then, of course, I also found out that if I became a master asker, and that's what I call them, master askers, where they master the art of questioning. And, it starts off with basic questions. Now, there's a basic truth, Sean. Tell me your past, and it'll tell me a lot about your future. Now, this is not true of every product, but I always tried to get people to tell me a little bit about their existing information, how much they know. Now, of course, if I was in the automobile sales, I'd watch the vehicle they drove in with, and that tells me a lot about what they're like. When I was in real estate, I'd ask them to tell me about the home they lived in, the last one they owned, not rented, but owned. And by having them tell me about the property, I would start getting a visual image of what they were like. So again, questioning about the past gives me clues about the future. And so being a master asker, you really commit to designing all the questions. And of course, it can begin as simply as, I'd love to have you give me a little background of your knowledge of our industry or product or service. And they can tell you what they know. That gives me insight. Then, of course, if I'm in the insurance business, I analyze the coverage they have. I analyze what type of product they have in the insurance field. That gives me kind of a highlight on what they said yes to last time. And the average person and company doesn't make drastic changes in buying habits. So show me your past, and it's almost like a searchlight showing your possible future.
Now, on continuing on the topic of question asking, does it depend on how you ask those questions? Meaning, a lot of thought leaders like yourself, I hear talk a lot about open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. When is it appropriate to use a closed-ended question, and when is it appropriate to use an open-ended question?
Well, I found over the years that I always started with open-ended questions. And for those people now just listening to us right now, an open-ended question we would call what I used to call a WWWWH, which are who, what, when, where, why questions. And they're questions that are open-ended, they can't say yes or no to. Like, tell me about your past experience in this field. So you can't say yes or no. Who have you gotten advice from in considering our type of product or service? When did you first decide you might have a need for what we offer? What benefits have you found in doing business in our industry? Now, see, the who, what, when, where questions allow them to open up, and they aren't demanding a yes or no. Now, the closed questions are questions that almost get a yes or no, which, of course, our favorite closed question is the tie down. And the tie down is a question at the end of a sentence that demands a yes. I've used a couple already tonight, haven't I?
You just did right then.
And that was one, wasn't it?
And another.
We did it again, didn't we? See, so taking isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, can't you, won't you, haven't you, hasn't it, hasn't she, at the end of a sentence is getting a yes agreement, and it's building what I call yes momentum. And that's what questions do for you.
Is there a certain time in that sales call that you ask the close-ended questions, or rather, let me just back up a little bit. Are there times when it's best to use tie downs, and are there some times when it's not appropriate to use tie downs?
Well, you just can't overuse any technique, because then the strategy, they pick it up and it becomes redundant. I always like to use a tie down kind of in the beginning. Like if I just met you and the listeners heard us talking, I'd say something like, Sean, we found over the years that the best way to serve a client is to make sure what we have to offer is important to them. I did research before I chose my firm because I wanted a company that offered true professionalism. And I think you'll agree with me, in today's business world, a reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it? Now, see, that was a tie down. A reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it? And I did it to show them the benefit of what I have to offer. Now, I would wait maybe a few more minutes. I'd get into my presentation. And I'd say one of the things I chose with this company was quality, because I find most people are looking to invest in a quality product. Do you agree with me on that? And of course, they say, well, yes, now I've got my second agreement of quality. So the tie down has to be used sparingly, but it's only one of the 40 questions I teach. So in our short time, we're going to cover just a few. But everything is wrapped around question, listen, don't talk, and tell.
Are there some good cadences for asking questions? This is actually one that I'm really curious about. I know that asking questions and listening is really key. What are some tips that you would give to a newer sales rep to help them remember to ask questions and then listen instead of do more talking? Because people can get really nervous. And they can talk a lot when they get really nervous. So what are some tips that you would suggest as to how not to talk too much, but to do a lot of listening?
Well, I think the first thing, you have to preface it kind of with an example of, we have found, I love saying we have found over the years. Now, a brand new salesperson can use the company credibility we have found over the years. Now, you might be a month in the business, but when you're talking about a 30-year-old company you represent, you can really, with sincerity, say, we have found over the years we can best serve our clients by asking certain questions, and your answers will enable me to save both of us time. Now, see, time is a big deal today. So by saying, my questions will save us both time and enable me to see if our product is right for you. So we've designed a few questions that I've written here on my buyer's analysis. Now, I always had the questions written out. Instead of just acting like it's off the top, I have them written. And I also will say this to the folks listening. Have them written in your own handwriting, not printed on some form, which is too typical of a salesperson's company, which threatens them. I always jotted down 5 questions. And I would have them in my own handwriting on either a legal pad or, of course, on my computer today, where I would say, we found these 5 questions to help me isolate the motivations that you might have to enjoy the benefits of our product. So you've got to almost brag about how they benefit by answering these 5 questions. And that's really gives you the setting up of questioning and listening instead of talking and telling.
So for the well-seasoned sales professional listening to Tom talk today, Tom, what would you suggest? And do you still suggest handwriting those questions out for the person who has probably been through hundreds of sales calls with their company and knows exactly which questions to ask? Is it as important to write those things out for the
Sure,
sales
because the
professional?
buyer across the table doesn't know you've been around all these years. They
Right.
don't know how long you've been. So again, I believe following the same formula works every single time, especially if you come across with the fact over the years we found that people most benefit from what we can offer by giving us the input on these questions. And I've jotted them down. Sure, I've jotted them down 1,000 times, but I'm not going to stop doing what works. And of course, they can be in a computer today. I still like them handwritten. I think that it adds so much when you come across with, I decided this was so important that I've jotted these questions down. And the first question is, can you give me your experience with our industry? You're looking at possibly getting insurance, and tell me about the insurance you have now. Now, one of the things I've learned too, Sean, is let me have your past, which gives me insight to your future. So I kind of use this now formula. Give me examples of what you have now. And of course, if I were in the automobile industry, I've watched your car you drove in with. If I was in real estate, I'd have you totally mentally tell me about your property, your home. And by listening to how large your home is, the number of bedrooms, front kitchen, back kitchen, blah, 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 I almost rebuild your home, which tells me what your hot buttons to purchase another home are.
This is great. This is really fantastic. I love this. I'm just eating all of it up. And for those that are sending questions in, because I've got a few coming in here through Twitter, we're going to get to your questions at the end, probably in about 5 or 10 minutes. So we'll get to them. I see them coming in, so thank you for that. Tom, let's kind of move forward here towards the end of the sales call. You've asked the right questions. You've added in tie downs. You've done a good job at peppering in some closed-ended questions as you get closer to the end of that sales call. What happens when the buyer says no?
Well, first of all, over the years, you learn that most people can't say yes, meaning write the check, till they give you some type of no. So the no is not bad. It's something you almost have to have. Not always, but many times. And I learned over the years that if people don't give you an objection, a challenge, some argue or fight about what we're talking about, they aren't interested. They're going to listen, wait till the time is right and say, well, we'll get back to you and think it over. I want someone to say, Tom, we're not sure about this, and we may have to, sleep on this. And I always said, I used to have fun with the people if they were fun people. I would say, I'm so excited to work with you that I'm going to get here on the couch and I'll go to sleep too, and I'll see you in the morning. And they'd laugh. I'd say, why don't we draft up our feelings? And I always use the term, Sean, draft up our feelings. And what that meant was, let me get out my form, my paperwork. We never call it a contract. Let's draft up our feelings on the paperwork and see how it looks. And then, of course, they always would say, well, we're not going to sign anything. No, and that's the last thing I'm going to ask you to do, which is true. That's the last thing. I just want to get it all down on paper. And I tried my best to move on to my agreement, which we never call a contract. It's an agreement. People love to agree. And I would write it up. And of course, I then, of course, wait till it was the end of the time to close. And I just, do my best to get their approval. And I found one thing over the years, that if you had the tenacity to start writing and get it on paper, it was hard for them to say no if they liked you and trust you and felt you were there for the right reasons. And that's the key. You've got to have this rapport built where they feel good about you. They like you. I don't think people say yes to someone they don't like. So work harder on yourself than you do in your job to be a person they feel good about.
I love it. I love it. I think this saying, some of my friends and I have this saying that I'm going to guess has come from you, because I think every great sales quote in most cases has come from you, and it's in regards to closing, and it's something to the effect of the sale does not start until that buyer says no. Does that sound familiar?
Oh,
And
yes,
and,
yes.
and would you agree?
My newest book is called When the Buyer Says No, and I love it because I've always wanted to take two letters, NO, make them the foundation of selling, and make salespeople realize that no is not bad. It's good when you know exactly how to turn that no into a yes. And most people can't spend money until they give you some type of no. But the key is to know how to gently, warmly turn that no into a yes. And of course, they used to say, Tom, we have to say no. And I used to smile and say, well, I love the word no, two letters, NO, which also are the two first letters in the word nothing, meaning if you say no and I can't help you say yes, then nothing will happen. It'll be the same tomorrow as it is today. If you say yes, you'll enjoy so many benefits from this wonderful new roof that we're going to put on your home. So I think we ought to just draft up our feelings and see if we should get started this week getting the roof put on your home.
What's the value of getting those no's, Tom? Because I think it's easy as a sales professional, especially if you're new. Maybe not so much if you're tenured, but because if you're tenured, you know that the no's are coming. You can expect them. But for the newer sales rep, or maybe for that entrepreneur who's looking at doing let's say it's a venture capitalist pitch for their product to get funding, and hearing that no is daunting. It's dreaded. Why should sales reps look forward to getting those no's?
Well, as I said before, over the years, now, of course, these are generalities, Sean. I wish I could say it's 100% true. It's not. But there's a generality that even when people have interest to say yes, they can't say yes until they first say some type of no. It can be a small no, like, we don't jump into things like this. Or we've found over the years we're better to sleep on this tonight and call you in the morning. Well, that's a baby no, which I've always said, you know what, that's fine. I've also found that if we draft up our feelings on the paperwork, I'll leave everything with you, then at least we'll have something solid to consider. And so why don't we get it all down? And if you want to sleep on it tonight, that's fine. Now I'm having the right, Sean, to fill out my paperwork, to get it down. And of course, then once they're moving on the yes momentum, the average person doesn't want to put it off. They just want someone to help them say yes. So I would get it all down and say, you know what, I'm excited about this. I kind of have a feeling you guys are too. I think we should go ahead and let us get started. I promise you this, I will make you so happy that you said yes tonight. And if you say no, I'll accept it, but let's not let that happen, okay?
This sounds so natural for you, and I know you're a teacher and a trainer. how can people get a little bit more natural at responding to some of these things? Because I think that's really key to make it feel natural instead of contrived or scripted out. What's your advice to someone who's looking for that just smooth as butter responses as you're giving right now?
Well, they have to realize they are like an actor or actress, not that they're not sincere, but actors or actresses learn what they're going to say. And I suggest if someone is hearing this and is tantalized by my message, they should go to my website. They can see all of my books, my CDs, and they can listen to me in their car. See, they're so fortunate with CDs today. They can put it in the dang car. They can hear every presentation. I've got 50 hours of CDs, and they can hear the way I come across. Then the key is to mimic or copy, which is what I did when I first started, Sean. I was a starving 19-year-old kid, and I started getting people's training. Then I'd listen to them. This is before we had cassettes years ago. And I would say, I'm going to speak like that. I'm going to talk like that. And it's almost like if you wanted to learn to sing a song, you have to hear the song, the words, then you have to hear the melody, then you have to practice alone, then you have to get confidence to sing the song. Well, it's the same with closing the sale. You have to hear the words, rehearse the words, practice the words, and then make them yours. I mean, I could pile up on a floor bigger than my living room letters from people who said, all I do is take your words, make them mine. Your words become me. I say them and I get the check. I'm making a lot of money. And that's a highlight in my life. When salespeople work for a company, make a sale, make an income, make a happy buyer, what a wonderful way to live.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. I think it's fantastic that you have that philosophy, and it's one of the reasons why Henry and I decided to do Real Sales Talk, because helping people grow and helping people make money is incredibly rewarding. Helping them get to a place where they can shorten that learning curve and get further along it's one of the most rewarding things, I feel. And I know that after you having done trainings and books, you've had a great opportunity to hear tons of fantastic stories from people. We have a few questions. I want to make sure and get to these because some of our Real Sales Talk listeners have taken the time to send them in. So you ready for a few questions, Tom?
Let's fire away.
Awesome. Okay, so the first one comes from my friend Matt Koenig. He's the CEO of gosh, the company's just slipping my mind. But my friend Matt is asking this question: how do you stay so true to what made you successful without losing relevance?
Well, I think you have to be a student of what's happening, not only economically in the world, but when I go into a city, I have to be prepared. I've been doing this longer now that Zig Ziglar's passed away. I'm now doing seminars and teaching people longer than anyone in the field of sales training. But I also don't want to wing it, don't want to teach what I've taught last year. So what I try to do, Sean, and this is something the CEO might want to do, is always debrief people that are on the firing line. And I would always call, when a promoter is doing a seminar, I'd say, give me 2 or 3 people the night before for dinner or in breakfast who are top producers in major companies, and let me pick their brains. Because finding out what's happening currently is so critical to keep yourself relevant. And so that's one of the things I always do. I try my best to learn the intelligence, the level of the people I'm training, where they're at, and I try to make it relevant. Every seminar, I write a new workbook, so it's not the same. It's kind of like tailor-made, which is, again, what a pro does. That's, I think, what I would suggest.
Fantastic. Great. Next question comes from Joel Wilson, and he says, what are the best ways to create urgency and keep customers from dragging out a decision?
Well, you have to start off in the beginning by kind of setting the stage that our company is excited to serve clients. And they've also said to us that when people can say yes on our first visit, we have an opportunity to give extra things in service, as I'll share with you. So my goal is to do such a job tonight that you're willing to say yes and let us serve you. Now, does that make sense? You almost have to brag about the objection. Any objection, you bring it up, brag about it, make it an advantage. If I know that 9 out of 10 times I'm going to get that type of stall, I'll find a way to bring it up. Over the years, our company has found that if we have people that really feel they want to stall making a decision, we can accept that. But we also have some bonus and some wonderful things we offer because our time is valuable. And the company, the president of the company has said, if they say yes on our first visit, we're going to do something special. Now, it doesn't need to be a big deal, Sean. It can be nothing more than we're going to give you this added whatever. And I always felt that if I brought it up, bragged about it, made it an advantage, I could get people to say yes instead of stalling me on that first visit.
I like that. So it's adding in some additional value to create that urgency is what you're saying.
Right. Blame the company. Always use the term upper management has asked us. See, when you say upper management, everyone's sitting there saying, I have a manager above me too. So always use the term upper management has given us the right to do some special things when people see the benefits we have to offer when they say yes when we first come in and do our presentation. So you bring it up, brag about it, make it an advantage, and blame upper management. Practice that strategy. It's fabulous.
I love it. I love it. Blame the upper management. It's all their fault. Okay, so we've got one last question here from Michael Douglas. And he says, in your opinion, what has the biggest impact on the close ratio? Bigger pipeline or better qualifying?
I think better qualifying. I think by asking the qualifying questions, and of course I'm using this fast, but I use a needs formula. And if you'll take the word needs, but don't make it N-E-E, make it N-E-A-D-S. N-E-A-D-S. Now those letters stand for what do you have now? Past experience tells me what you've done in the past. The E stands for what do you enjoy about what you have now, which lets me know your hot buttons for a future decision. The A stands for what would you like to alter or change about what you have now. Then the D is who is the decision maker. And the S is solution. So by using the qualifying formula, now, enjoy, alter, decision maker, solution, you can isolate what they will say yes to in a qualifying formula. And I think that is more important. The needs qualification cycle is so powerful to find out what they will say yes to.
That's incredible. That's really, really great. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here, and I want to ask you a couple of just basic questions for those that are enjoying what they're hearing from you, Tom. We've mentioned a couple of books on the show today. One of them is How to Master the Art of Selling. The other one is When the Buyer Says No. If our Real Sales Talk listeners want to pick those up, where's the best place to do that?
I would go to my website, tomhopkins.com. And not only that, go to that, even if they're not interested in my books, go and push on free resource page. Sean, I have a page of free resources, which are my thank you notes, follow-up letters, things they can get. There's no charge for them. Anyone that comes to my website, we want to thank them and reward them for taking their time to look at what we do. So if they go to tomhopkins.com, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and just put free resource page, they can have access to all of this for absolutely nothing. And I'd love them to start letting me train them.
That's got to be, and I'm going to do that myself because I haven't done that. But I'm guessing this is probably thousands of dollars worth of knowledge that you're just giving away for free to help
It
people
is.
grow.
It is. Because salespeople are the foundation of our whole society. You know, I hate it when people look down their nose at selling or salespeople. And of course, I try my best to say, kids, most companies wouldn't have a profit if someone didn't go out and sell something. And selling is the foundation. Every country I go, I just got back from a huge tour in China, and all these wonderful Chinese people want our selling skills. They love American selling. And it's an art form. It's something so special, and it's so important to this country. And that's why if you're right now a salesperson hearing us, hey, put your shoulders back, head held high. You should be so proud that you, first of all, probably had the guts to give up the security that some people have in just a paycheck. You said, I'm going to earn an income helping people say yes to my offering. Because they said yes and they want me to serve them, I'm going to have a better income, but they'll have a better life because the benefits they get from saying yes to my offering. What a wonderful way to live. I so salute you, salespeople.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And if I think you do some events, and so if someone wanted to attend some events of yours that you put on, or even hire you to train their sales team, what's the best way to find out more about that?
Yeah, they can go to tomhopkins.com. And Sean, I'm having a big 2-day in Hawaii. And, you know, I love Hawaii. It's one of my favorite spots. And we're going to have a 2-day seminar there in March 10th and 11th. And there's probably people right now saying, gosh, what a way to go to Hawaii, tax deductible, because it's a seminar that Tom gives me a certificate for. So I can bring my wife or husband and write off the trip to go see Tom and spend 4 or 5 beautiful days in Hawaii. So that's something they may want to look at. The 2-day in Hawaii, it's a weekend. Then we have a day before of travel, a day after where we take people out on tour. So maybe the Hawaii might be the way to have a tax deductible Hawaiian vacation.
I love what you're thinking there. I think that's great. Well, Tom,
Okay.
thank you very, very much for joining us today. You're a sales legend and one of my personal sales heroes. So it's been an honor to have you on and to get to ask you questions and to get to learn a little bit more about you. I hope someday we can meet in person and I can shake your hand and say face to face thank you. But thank you for being on the show this evening. Really appreciate all of the wisdom and insight that you've given today.
Thank you, Sean. All the best to all of you. Thank you again, Sean.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, Tom.
Bye-bye.